Hello and welcome to the Coaching Podcast, Coaching for Success in Sport and Business. Your host is Emma Doyle, the energy and high performance under pressure coach who is a world leader in unleashing human potential. Buckle up for this high octane session. Let them have it, coach.
G'day everybody and welcome to the Coaching Podcast. I'm Coach Em and today I have the absolute pleasure of interviewing Kevin Craggs. Now, Kevin's got that beautiful Scottish accent, which of course I love Scotland. Shout out to my good friend Judy Murray. And I'm so excited because you are the first golf coach that we've had on the show. People who listen to me know that I'm a little bit of a golf enthusiast, shall we say. And I'd love to talk about so many things. For those of you who don't know Kevin, he is the current director of golf at the IMG Academy, and he's basically coached for over 55,000 hours across major tours, PGA professional, 4 decades coaching experience, as I just said, and coached and mentored lots of champions, both in business and in sport. So huge role. Our pattern break question for you, Kevin, is if golf was a country, what country would golf be?
I think I can answer that. It would absolutely be, without a doubt, Scotland, 100%. It would be Scotland, and the reason I tell you that is because not only is Scotland, it prides itself very much on tradition, it also prides itself on progression. When you think about the great inventors like John Logie Baird and all these people, what Scotland have produced, so progression's a big part, but also so is tradition. So I think it ticks every single box for that.
Yeah, it absolutely does. And I did rent a Scottish castle for my 40th birthday. I'm a huge Scottish fan. Also, shout out to my best mate, Julie Gordon, who is, of course, in Glasgow. All right, I promise I won't put on any more Scottish accents, Kevin, but I will. I do want to talk a little bit about how you ended up, I guess, in Florida. I did work in, well, back then it was called the Nick Bollettieri Tennis Academy. So I know the part of the world that you're in. It was a long time ago, but it was an amazing experience. It blew me away back then, the size, the volume. So I'd love for you just to share your backstory, just even on how you landed there and what you're currently doing.
Wonderful. Okay, so it's been an interesting journey, really. I mean, I suppose the last 10 years, they saw me really being, I was a national coach of Scotland and had some wonderful success and great memories there. But I also was going back and forward between the LPGA Tour, the European Tour, the PGA Champions Tour. So I was spending most of my life flicking across the ocean between the United States and places all over Europe. And there was, at the time I was coaching Paula Creamer, known the Pink Panther, and we just kind of decided to work after her injury, and I was flying to Orlando back and forward, and word got out that there were a few American players, Sean McKell, who started working with me, and they said, listen, are you intending to come out to America? You intending to be a resident out here? Because if you are, there's a few PGA Tour players that are kind of keen to work with you. And there was rumors of Jordan Spieth and all these people, and it was interesting because when you've done about 25 countries, a year traveling back and forward in that Coke can in the sky, it gets very tired. And there's an illusion that behind the ropes there's some glamorous life, but it's a circus that travels all the time. And I was getting very tired of it. And I remember my wife saying one day, hey, do you know the name of your daughter's school teacher? And I said, no, I don't know. Do you know what your daughter likes to do when she comes home? And there was a realization that, yes, I was bringing these little globes and these trinkets back from my travels, but I was missing out on invaluable time. And I thought to myself, it's time now to really stop the traveling, but I've got this huge vocation to give back. IMG, I had friends in IMG said, hey, listen, there's a job at IMG. It's a director of golf. They want someone to set up the golf program there. They want someone to build the culture within the program and establish some growth, some culture, some values. And I said, this sounds exciting. So I arrived here, came in the October 2018. And that's when the destination began. And it was a very interesting journey in the beginning, because obviously IMG is incredibly well known. It's very well known for producing some incredible athletes. But there was a side of it that didn't quite fit. And I remember being here after about 7 months, and my boss came in and he said, "Hey, listen, our owners would like to hear your view on what you've seen." He said, "Well, I want you to present to Mark Shapiro, who happened to be the owner of Endeavor, and Endeavor owned UFC, and they owned a lot of WME. They were big players in the world of business." He said, "You've probably got a 15-minute window, and here's a guy from Scotland. I've never really presented to anyone from New York, so I sit in this room. This New York suit walks in and says, 'Right, get on with it. You've got 10 minutes.'" So I said, "Okay, right, here we go." And my first slide presentation was a McDonald's burger. So my boss looked across at me and said, "What the hell is this? Where's he going with this?" And Mark turned around and said, "What's this?" I said, "Well, just give me, I've only got 9 minutes left, so I need to kind of get through this." I said, "Have you ever been to McDonald's, Mark?" And he went, "Absolutely." I said, "Okay, you've ever had a burger?" He went, "Yes." I said, "Now let's evaluate." I said, "How good was the quality of the bread?" And he went, "Not very good." I said, how good was the quality of the burger?" He said, "Not very good." I said, "When you finished the burger, what did you taste? Bread or burger or just mush?" He said, "Just mush." I paused for a second and said, "Can we agree then that's not really a very good product?" He went, "Absolutely." I said, "How good is the brand?" I said, "The point I'm trying to make is be very careful. IMG right now isn't a brand, and the product isn't very good." So the point that I was trying to make is we've got all this incredible facility and this incredible building and this incredible history, but at the cost of we were taking our eyes off the product. So I focused for 5.5 years, which I have done, is to build a product. How we get people better. The end of the day is, if you send someone to IMG Academy, or you send it to anybody or any coach, as a parent, you ask 3 questions. Is my child safe? Are they having fun? And are they getting better? And those are the 3 primary things that we try to deliver here through a product rather than just a brand. So that's where I am now. That's what I'm doing every day, is trying to educate, motivate, and empower coaches to think more, learn more, do more, and become more. And that transcends that voice into the culture and the values and the systems of our students. And we then try to partner with our parents, so we're all one big family, and ultimately that takes care of the business itself.
Do you think you can change culture overnight?
No, absolutely not. And I think there has to be a want to change culture. When we think, about what is culture, culture is a belief system, and a belief system is very complex, because you and I have been brought up in a different belief system and a different culture, and our values and systems are all very different. Trying to get everybody to think the same and to operate the same is really, really kind of almost impossible. What you can do is you can empower and guide people to take self-responsibility, and through better self-awareness, through getting them to look inside a little bit more and challenge their belief systems of why they think the way they think. What we do try to do here, obviously the word culture is used a lot, but I'd like to think of it more of a vision and a mission. What's our purpose? Do we wake up every day and understand our purpose? And each one of us have different purposes every day. And what's quite interesting when we look at cultures, or we look at belief systems, or we look at values, invariably the wants and desires of anybody, whether it's an athlete, a tennis player, a golfer, a business person, the wants and desires end up being surrounded by 4 primaries. And those first primaries are, there's a want and desire for connection. I want to connect with people who are like-minded. I want people who are going to empower me. I want people who are going to encourage me. I want people who are going to give me opportunity. So wants and desires can be attached to that. The second want and desire can often be attached to approval. We want people to know that, hey, we're doing the right thing. We want people to recognize our value and our worth. We want people to say, hey, by the way, you're good. Keep going. We want that recognition. We also want, and as you get older, as a retiring athlete, we want security. We want security in our health, our well-being. We want security in our job, our finances, our relationships. So we seek this huge security. So we've got security, we've got connection, we've got approval. And finally, the fourth want and desire that we often try to attach ourselves is to be more in control. Control of our ideas, and control of how we think, and control of what we do, and in control of our destinies. What do they say? A human being only wants two things. They want to be able to share their voice and have choice. So to all our listeners listening to this right now, when you analyze any want or desire, whether it's in performance or whether it's in life, you will always be able to attach it to one or more of those four things. You want connection, you want control, you want approval, or you want security. And I think those four elements, those wants and desires, form a culture too.
Such a fascinating topic for me. And just a quick shout out to our golf pennant team, because we have completely changed the culture, driven by the values, of course, which are enthusiasm, teamwork, and mental toughness. So we are every turtle matters. And it's got a life of its own. You know, we've got turtle ball markers, turtle crocheted affirmations on our buggies, the whole kit and caboodle. And our season starts this weekend. I'm super excited to just because of the energy of, yeah, we all want to win, of course, but there's so many great other teams that we're going to play against, but it's like the camaraderie and the security and the connection that you're talking about is really exciting. So first of all, Kevin, you have to say, just to give the turtles a shout out for me.
A huge shout out to the turtles. Keep going, keep pushing, keep climbing, keep being better than yesterday.
All right, I love that. All right, well, let's talk about failure on a micro level and a macro level. So let's just go down the route of golf and the people that you've worked with, like about the ability to let go of a mistake. Okay, so what are your thoughts on that? And you know, the people that you've worked with, I know everyone's different, but are there some commonalities around that micro moment of how quickly they can let go of it and then focus on the next shot? And then on a macro level, could you share also maybe a story around failure in your own life that you've learned from?
Yeah, and it's a big question because again, it goes back to the perspective of how we see failure. You know, what's that great saying in the United States? You know, for every setback prepares the platform for a comeback. You know, I think anybody who operates outside their comfort zone, or anyone who operates in terms of the world of growth, is going to always see some level of setback or failure, or how you frame it. You know, but there's a lovely line, I kind of three lines that I always look for, and I always think when we talk about, or anytime I've been in a situation where someone perceives failure, I always say consistency will always beat intensity. Progress will always beat perfection, and fundamentals will always beat fads. And your goals don't care how you feel. So what I mean by that is when we look at something that hasn't worked out the way we want it to, invariably it comes down to us primarily making a mistake of ourselves, attaching ourselves to an outcome. And you see, when we do that, something happens. When you attach yourself to an outcome, we go, okay, that's something that should happen then, and it should happen in a certain way. For me, that's a fast and slippery slope for that kind of from wanting to deserving. And that's where the mistakes are. When I attach myself to a score or attach myself to an outcome, I know I don't longer want that. I deserve that. And when that doesn't happen, that's when things get misaligned. So in my time of coaching, anytime we set goals, anytime we look at things, I reinforce that line of consistency is better than intensity. Progress will always beat perfection. Fundamentals always will beat the fads, and your goals don't really care about how you feel. Really, all that is then put together by not attaching yourself to an outcome.
Can you do the fundamentals one again? Fundamentals will beat what?
Beat fads. phases, fashion and fads.
Ah,
So when I'm in
fads.
fads,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
sometimes fundamentals, there's these, hey, this is the latest craze to combat failure. Wow, hey, take this tablet and you'll get a six pack tomorrow.
Mm,
All these quick fix ideas, but
mm,
fundamentals and the basics will
mm,
always beat fashion and fads.
mm.
Always.
And so on the micro level, how quickly do elite athletes let go of mistakes, do you think? Like, is it,
I think if you think about an elite athlete, what separates them from, let's say, the athlete that's struggling or not quite getting there? And in my small opinion, and it's just one man's opinion, I think elite athletes have the gift to recognize the three important circles. That's the circle of control, that's the circle of concern, and the circle of influence. And you see, when people kind of dwell on failure and don't move on, they sit in the circle of concern. They concern themselves about all the things that they cannot control. It's a question I ask myself every day. At the end of every day, how much time have I spent in the circle of concern, worrying about and mithering and concerning myself about things I have no control? I got to let go. You see, the best athletes in the world have this gift of let go. So they get out the circle of concern very quickly. The circle of control is the things that you own. I own my effort, I own my commitment, I own my decision making, and I own my focus. Whereas the circle of influence, that's where you win. That's where you win it. And you say, why? Because you understand that your attitudes and your perceptions can often change. But the circle of influence is how you respond to them. So I know that failure or disappointment is going to arrive at some point. I know that I'm going to make some poor choices, some poor decisions. But if I'm in the circle of influence, I can respond to them a certain way. And I can get back into the circle of control, but remember to stay out of the circle of concern. Because if I'm in concern, I'm at now where I'm living in the world of the energy vampire that's misdirecting me. And invariably, when people can't move on from failure and they're dwelling on failure, they're sitting into that concern. I couldn't believe the leaderboard. Can you believe the weather change? And you listen to the reasons and excuses, and all of it's the circle of concern. And I say, for me, the best athletes, they stay out of that circle. And it's either I'm in control or I'm in influence.
well, I'm loving the practical tips already because it's that ability to choose to respond versus react, choosing
Yes.
what circle. And I think it's okay to say, hey, oh, I just noticed I was choosing to stay too long in the circle of concern. I like the practicality of that tool. So thank you so much for sharing that. And let's now flip it into the business world. Your experience in also leadership coaching, and what are some of the things, I guess, from your years of experience in coaching golf that translate into the business world?
I always go back to, and we look whether it's coaching tennis, coaching a golfer, coaching an athlete, or even coaching a business person. Quick question that we always start with, what's the problem we're trying to solve? What is the problem we're trying to solve? And invariably, we go through life as a sports person, sometimes never asking that question. We just go along and we say, like, we're working on this or we're doing this. In business, a lot of people realize they're looking for the three things. What do you lack? Well, there's no problems in life. There's just people. So I have a problem with engagement. I have a problem with productivity. Invariably, that hurts profit. Okay. So when you ever talk to a leadership company, they're looking for, I want productivity, I want better engagement, and I want to improve profits. Okay, well, first and foremost, what's the problem we're trying to solve? One of those three things or all of those three things? And it always starts with defining what are you trying, what do you think, or how do you think the cure to your problem is? So if I'm hitting the ball to the right or to the left, or I can't perform under pressure, what do you think the solution is? And invariably, I think the solution is by asking yourself the right questions. And I think as a leader, it's very easy to start to look inside out rather than outside in. And I often try sometimes, and I've done this a lot, I bring people from other sports to sit into our staff meetings who know nothing about our ins and outs. but they look from such a far field that they start to see blind spots that nobody else sees because they're ignorant of the workings. And I challenge leaders, or I challenge sports people to sometimes, how often do you bring someone outside your circle to have an independent view? And I think a fresh pair of eyes often finds blind spots that you're not always looking for. Sometimes, you've heard the saying, we can get so close to something that we get snowblind and we stop seeing the simple things. And for me, it goes back to that whole thing is let's get back to basics. Let's get back to managing people. Let's get back to managing our thoughts, our feelings. Our feelings lead to our behaviors lead to our attitudes and actions. But wait a second, if you're not getting productivity or you're not getting to what you want, well, invariably, who's installing the thoughts, the values, the cultures, the systems? What do you think that's leading into in terms of feelings and behavior? And all people look for is one of those four things. If your staff need approval, what are you doing to show them recognition? If your staff need more control, what's the promotion ladder looking like? What's the career pathway? If your staff are needing more connections, what are your relationship and your network functions within the company? And then finally, most staff are looking for security. Are their jobs safe? How well are you encouraging people to look after their well-being? And are you the example? And invariably, when you look at leaders and we take the athletic side to things, I say to most leaders, the order for you to manage yourself first is this, your well-being. Because if you don't look after yourself, you're no use to the second order, which is your family. And then if you're no use to your family, you're then no use to your own self-growth and development. And then you're no use to your work. What people do, they focus on their work. They jeopardize their family, they park their self-growth, and they put their well-being and their mental health and their nutrition to one side. And I challenge every leader, every CEO, every manager, and say to them today, if they're listening to this, what have you done today in terms of your health, your well-being, your nutrition, your exercise? What have you done today? And how have you prioritized that above your family, above your self-growth, and above your work? Because without it, the rest doesn't fit.
I've done some really cool practical exercises over the years, the three buckets, and just having people write down then what they did in their day and then rip them up and put them in each of the bucket, then tip the buckets upside down. And literally the one for themselves is like always the one with the least amount of sheets of paper in it. It's such it's a nice visual to reinforce exactly what you said. And you've got a lot of wisdom, Kevin, which comes from experience, but obviously you don't start out with wisdom as a coach. So I know that you were mentored by the legendary Sev Ballesteros. Is that how I pronounce it? Yeah. There you go, Ballesteros. So let's talk about mentors and who you've learned from. What would you say would be if you could break it down to three things that somebody else has impacted your philosophy?
I think where I am of today has been a combination of learning from so many people.
Yeah.
And some are not always recognized. Some people, you mentioned a name there at the very beginning of this conversation. I remember when I started out as a coach, I used to run this junior club in the middle of Scotland in the winter. And it was the Hot Chocolate Club. And there was these two brothers who used to arrive. And this one particular brother, God, he was tenacious. He wanted to win all the time. He would win back to back the hot chocolates on a Saturday. And every day he'd come on, he'd say to me, are we doing the hot chocolate thing? Are we doing the hot chocolate thing? Because he had to win. He ended up becoming Andy Murray. And, I remember his brother used to come and see me every Christmas Eve because his granny used to live opposite the street from me. And he'd have a wee golf lesson. And even though those guys were younger than me, they were a huge influence on me just through their tenacity to be better today than yesterday. And I want to summarize all that. I mean, Severiano Ballesteros was a huge influence on me growing up and in my later life before he passed away. Steve Black was my long-term mentor who sadly passed away. He was involved in rugby and athletes and all that stuff. I've had mentors who have been prisoner of war. I've been mentors who have just been ordinary people, or whatever ordinary stands for. And it's led to me to the point where all that philosophy is accumulated. One word is all the buckets they've gave me, all the skills they gave me, from understanding how to listen with my ears and listen with my eyes, understanding the asking the right questions is key, understanding the power of suggestion, all that's important. But it all accumulated to where I am today, which is care, CARE. And it's asking the question, if anyone's listening to this, do you really care? I mean, whatever you're doing right now, do you care for this? Do you care about your day? Do you care about being better? And if you truly care, you need to tick these 4 boxes. The first one is, are you clear on your purpose? I mean, because care stands for clarity. The first letter is C, and clarity is absolutely key. If you don't have clarity, you can't commit. And if you can't commit, you can't be consistent. The second thing my mentors taught me was the second letter of care, which was action. It's all very well having an idea, but what are you going to do with it? And I go back to that situation. Are you still doing what you said you were going to do a week later, a month later? I'm going to the gym and keep fit. Are you still doing it in 6 months' time? What actions are... Now, you have to understand there's going to be setbacks. There's going to be left field hindrances and failures. Could be injury, could be work or whatever. But how quick do you get back on the horses and start riding? So action's key. And then we look at the R of care. They all taught me the importance of being resilient. You see, in today's society, we are of a society where curiosity is very easy, because back in my day, in the black and white days, you had to use your imagination. Now I can just Google anything. I know what Tiger Woods had for his breakfast this morning. So that the curiosity disappears with this next generation. So they're less resilient. Go back in the days of the 1940s and 50s, where your granny would, sprain her wrist or sprain her ankle and wouldn't mention a word. They were just hardy people. They were far more resilient because they had a lot less. And I think now, as we move on, it's important that we teach this society that resilience and mental toughness is absolutely critical to growth. And then we finish with the E of care, which really is the pivotal part, because if you're not clear and you don't follow with action and you're not resilient, you'll never chase for daily excellence. And if you truly, truly chase for daily excellence, you can only do so if you have clarity, clear action, you're prepared to set a resilience, and if you are resilient, you will always chase for excellence. And if you're doing those 4 things, you can look at yourself in the mirror and say, I care. And if you don't care, invariably, you're not doing any of those 4 things. And if you say you care and you really do care, prove to those around you that you have a clear goal. You are following through on your actions. You are going to bounce back from being resilient, and you're striving to be your own form of excellence, because that then shows that you care. And all that really has been accumulated and put together from the incredible gifts and messages that I've learned from my mentors and people from over the years. I've just summarized it to where I am right now and what I advocate. And I don't claim for 1 minute to own any of that. That's just been an accumulation of some incredible knowledge and sharing.
Yeah. I always say confidence equals time plus experience. And we can't short circuit time. We can only short circuit the experience of others and add that to our own leadership coaching toolkit, to see what works for you. But I absolutely care, and I'm absolutely loving this conversation. All right. You say you have a unique motivational style.
I do. It's funny because when I say unique, I think what it is, and you've probably already picked on, when I was 12 years old, I couldn't read or write. So I had to go through life kind of pretending and saying, almost befriending lots of people. And then eventually, it came to an exam where I thought, oh, I'm in trouble now. So I get to 13 years old and I'm sitting in a classroom with 6-year-olds learning A for apple, B for banana, curly cur and all that stuff. And what it left me was an incredible fascination for words. So I have to break things into acronyms. That's how I remember. And, I remember starting out and somebody said to me, well, you're quite a good coach. You should do it for a living. When I broke my plane, it's okay. And when you say the word coach, you go, oh, as a coach. For me, the word coach doesn't mean that. I have to break the word down through its acronym. So if I'm going to be a great coach, I have to be a great communicator. I have to be organized, adaptable, competent, and honest. So you see, that's how I break coach down. And if I turn around and I use those elements of coach, well, then I'm being a coach. If I want to put ing on it, coaching, I'll then say, well, I need to be more invested in learning my subject. I always need to be in the now and present, and I have to be a goal setter. So then I'm coaching if I'm doing goal setter to self and others. So when I say about the unique motivation, I try to get people always to leave my encounters in a feeling better about themselves than before, and give them a tool in a form of acronym or something they can remember that can take them to use to allow them to learn more and become more. So that's how I say in terms of unique, everyone leaves with a little tool to take away and act on that tool for them to change behavior and create some habit.
Mm. I think tools are so important. I was speaking to a teacher friend of mine. I have to get her on the podcast last night, and she was just talking about the latest, neuroscience for grade 5, so 10-year-old kids, about it's all good and well to provide environment for that, let them to explore the problem solving and decision making that lives within them. But if they don't have the tools to do it, then how are they ever going to pick it up on their own? And I think, I think it's so important that we provide that environment with the tools. I think that's a key distinction in what you said that I'm just loving. So I'll have to go to my guiding question at this point, Kevin, which is, in 1 to a maximum of 3 words, what do you think makes a great coach?
The ability to educate, empower, and explore.
Educate, empower, and explore.
You said the tools. I think it's for anyone to achieve anything, whether you're teaching, coaching, managing, or mentoring, there's always the first cycle, which is the education process. So now I need to educate you in what I'd like you to do. I need to educate you to understand. Then there's the next cycle of, once you understand and you fully understand, is to empower you to really go out there and take some ownership. And that's done with the final E, which is only done through self-exploration. At the end of the day, a great coach never wants to be the owner. All they merely are is the renter of information. You are the primarily owner. I rent it and I pass it to you to be the owner. Where the mistakes are, sometimes coaches take too much ownership and they create so much dependence with the fear that they're going to be lost. But every great coach educates and empowers, and then allows that person to get out and do some exploration, so they become dependent and they become the owner. And that's, for me, great coaches almost do themselves out of a job.
And
it's from teachers, coaches, to managers, to eventually the cycle of mentor. So I could be with you as a student. We started off our term in the education where I taught you. I then empowered you through coaching. I managed you through exploration. But all I do now is I mentor to make sure that you manage those 3 things yourself. You choose the kind of education to listen to. You decide who you're going to allow to empower you. And you're allowed to do it from exploration and decide what you're going to do, delete or delegate. So, never duplicate anything.
So on the empower piece, this concept of when a business person comes to me and says, I want my people to be more engaged. I don't believe you can make someone engaged, right? So talk to me about the empower piece, that second, just expand that a little more into, especially in the workplace now as well. You've got all the different personalities. We've got the 5 different generations sitting side by side in the workplace for the first time ever. And so you've got this real diverse group of people. Do you empower them? Do they empower themselves? What's the fine balance? What's your take around engagement in the workplace?
It's a great question again. I mean, it's like, for me, empowerment is really giving someone a voice or choice. When we use the word empowerment, really for me is, if I'm in a workforce and I take my own staff, do my staff feel they can speak freely without judgment or consequence? Are they empowered to? And if you can position your team, whether it's a tennis team, golf team, football team, soccer team, or actually a work team, to truly empower them means that they can voice their concerns, they can voice their ideas with no judgment or consequence. That's the first part. The second part of empowerment is, people want to see action and evidence. If I voice something and it's being validated as, yes, that's a good point, and they see action on it, they feel empowered even more to get involved. And the way I feel empowerment, it starts with this, really. And I go back to the 3 I's. There's always the rule of threes. Truly, you've got to get people interested first in what you want to do. Whatever your vision is, whatever your culture is, you have to get them interested. The second I is, this is the bit where people fail, is you've got to get them involved. You've got to let go of the control button and give other people control. So to get people interested, they've got to like the idea. You've then got to get them involved in the idea. And once you get them interested, involved, the third is the outcome, which is they all become invested. Once you have them invested, they're empowered now to make decisions, knowing that their voices and their choices are being heard and actions being followed. Only then can you see engagement, enhanced productivity, and an outcome of improved profits.
Yep, absolutely. All right. Well, I think we need to land this fabulous chat. Selfishly, I have 2 questions. One is about my own golf. But you know what? I'll park that for now. I won't put everyone through my own selfish question. I want to finish on legacy. I've just finished reading James Kerr's book about the All Blacks. So great read. I highly recommend it. Everybody check it out. What legacy would you like to leave?
It's something I've thought about, and I want you to think of it this way, is I want to leave a footprint in cement, not sand. That's all I want to do, is in life, in my encounters with people, that I leave a footprint in cement and not sand. I don't want those feelings, those words, or those contributions to be washed away, but to be indented where they become memorable and then passed down. So my legacy is to leave a footprint in cement and not sand.
So good. So good. Well, I tell you, I've really cared about this conversation to educate, empower, explore, so that we can connect, remember about significance, reinforcing how much you appreciate people, with safety, make sure they've got control over their growth and development, so that you can build a culture, and wanting versus deserving, as well as so many wonderful acronyms. I've been invested in this chat with all my presence, and I know that is one of the keys to golf and life, in being in the moment when you step up to hit that ball. And with Daily Excellence, everybody, all the links to learn more about Kevin, please check out the show notes. And Kevin, is there anything else you'd like to finish with?
Hey, and you said about being in the now, being present. Well, I just wrote a book, and it's called "You Are Where Your Feet Are." Ooh. And I want you to remember right now, and I close with this: As we conclude this incredible chat, and it's been really fun, Emma, and I look forward to another opportunity to even speaking to your listeners at some point. And I want you to think about this last thing. When we talk about when I was young, I was constantly chasing rainbows. Can't wait to be older. Can't wait to do this. Can't wait to that. My granny used to say to me, "You are where your feet are, son." Right now, my feet are under the table and I'm talking to you, and it's incredible. Right now, your feet are under the table and you're talking to me. Try to take your feet back to yesterday. It's not possible. Try to take your feet into tomorrow. It's not possible. We are only where our feet are. When we talk about golf, if you're on the golf course and you're behind a tree, don't panic. You are where your feet are. If you don't like where you are, you have to move them. But always remember that, in society right now, look down at your feet. And if your feet are not where you want them to be, how are you going to move them? And if they are where they want to be, ask yourself this final question. If my feet are where I want them to be, are the people surrounding me right now contributing to my success, or are they distracting me? And if they're distracting you, move. And if they're not, keep them where they are. You're only where your feet are.
And I just invite everyone just to I always say this, but just pause and take your shoes off, connect with the ground, be super present. And of course, everybody, thanks so much for listening. Enjoy your coaching.
The Coaching Podcast is sponsored by Transition Coach for Athletes, a global coaching, mentoring, and US college sporting scholarship placement service. The service helps athletes navigate the often challenging world of choosing your best college fit while maximizing sports performance. Visit www.transitioncoachforathletes.com. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a rating review on your podcast listening device. And don't forget to tell a fellow coach about the show. The ball is in your court to take action and enjoy your coaching.